Hello, BookTube. Well, it's another bookshelf tour. This is bookshelf number 6 of the thin east wall bookcase. Sorry about the angle. Sorry about the bad lighting. This is what happens when you film in a corner. And I thought once again that we would do the transverse books first, just to get them out of the way. The first one being a hardcover of the old Viking Portable Romantic Reader, with a mustachioed romantic on the cover. Those of you who know the Romantics will know that none of them look like that. And you might even, those of you who know the Romantics really well, might recognize who that does look like. It looks like Trelawney, widely known in his own time and since as Lord Byron's Jackal, a miserable quasi-military loafer and hanger-on who shouldn't be on the cover. The Viking Portable Romantic Reader should have someone with long flowing locks on the cover. But these old Viking Portables, I just love them. The editorial decisions that went into making them are so good that they are infinitely reprintable now. I wish that Viking Penguin would reprint them as Penguin Classics, just as they are, without updating them at all. But this is one of my favorites, so it's the one that's here. And then something recent, something from just last year, Vanity Fair's Writers on Writers anthology they made of various writers from their own stables writing about other writers. It's a very, very good anthology. So it made its way into this room. And then a bit of a Steve book, but it's the heart and soul of my book room. Of course it's going to be a Steve book. This is Edwardian England. 1901, 1914. So it's slightly long Edwardian England. And this is everything. This is the society, the games, the politics, the literature, the pop art, everything. It's a bit of a chunker, but it is the definitive book on the Edwardian era, which I love. And then the best and the brightest, David Halberstam's history of the smart young man that JFK surrounded himself with in his administration, and their legacy. It's them in their heyday, and then as their heyday frittered away. It's a classic in its own way of first-hand, very good, but also admittedly personal American history, of a type that I just love. So I have read it many times. I'm sure I'll read it more times before I drop off the twig. Then we have two books that go together, two books on the same book. This is an illustrated edition of Frankenstein. This is Barry Moser illustrations all throughout. Let me see if I can get. Those of you who know him will know he does these very minimalist, photorealistic woodcuts that are. I think they're quite good. I love them. I wish that I had kept, or I wish that the publisher had made it in a usable size. There was a big Bible to which he did all of the illustrations, but the only versions of it that I've ever seen were too big to carry, too big to put on your lap, too big to own. Basically, basically a gigantic thing for churches, but not for the popular reader. And I confess, I ought to check with the Brattle and see if there has ever been a popular edition of that work. It was loaded with his artwork. But I love his artwork, so if I can find it, I do. And this is I have a soft spot for the histrionics of Frankenstein. And then the essential Frankenstein, this is a version by Leonard Wolf. I think I might have already praised his essential Dracula. You absolutely have to have his essential Dracula. It is an unabashedly wonderful annotated version of a classic. And he actually does it again in this book. So every page has the text and then hundreds and hundreds of feverishly nerdy notes and elaborations. And it's just a joy to read. He did one for Dracula, he did one for Frankenstein, he did one for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and all three are worth finding, especially the Dracula one, but the Frankenstein one is also great. How I wish that he could have done that to every American classic, but no. Or every classic, a proto-horror classic would be great. He had a sweet tooth for that, but no, I think he stopped at those three. Then we have this is The World of the Salt Marsh. I'm sure I've made it clear on this channel before. I love salt marshes. I have explored them, especially in the Northeast here in America, endlessly with a great amount of joy. And this is a fairly new book. Yeah, it still has the pub sheet in it. This is from 2012, so I would have read it. I probably reviewed it as well, and then it came immediately into this room because I just it's wonderful, and I love the subject. And then we have a classic, something that I love. This is Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain. But not just any, it's the Reader's Digest edition. Some of you may have seen Olive on A Book Olive praise the Reader's Digest Boris Pasternak. And she was absolutely right. When they were doing these classic editions, they did a really good job. These are actually very lovely, very sturdy editions of the classics. So, the ones that I really like, I have quite a few of them. And Innocents Abroad is I absolutely love Mark Twain's travel writings, and I don't know of a hardcover of this one that I like more. So I have this one. Then we have this is an anthology. This is the Erasmus Reader. It's only that thin though, and Erasmus wrote an enormous amount. He wrote for his entire life, all the time, every day, on every conceivable subject. But I've kept this over the years. I forget when did I get this? 1995. I've kept this over the years because I like the breadth of the selection. I think the editor is Erica Rummel, and I thought she did a very good job. It's not the only Erasmus anthology I have by a long shot, but I find it's the one I go back to the most number of times. And then the last thing on this shelf is enormous, takes up almost a third of the shelf, and you've seen it on this channel before. In fact, it was BookTube that helped me to make it. Here, I'll show it to you as one. It's Shelby Foote's 3-volume History of the American Civil War, which I think I found one volume at a library sale, and then I mentioned that I was missing another volume, and one of you found it for me, and then I found another, or maybe some of you found 2 volumes for me, or whatever. I have gone back and forth on this trilogy many times. I am a big fan of the U.S. Civil War trilogy by Bruce Catton. I can't recommend it highly enough to all of you. And there have been many times in my life where I've thought, well, you only need one U.S. Civil War trilogy, and nobody does it better than Catton, including Shelby Foote. It's taken me a while, but I've gradually come around to seeing that Shelby Foote does different things. There's a kind of Gothic, Baroque floridity to his account that is, I think, an unconscious aping of the literature of the time. And the more of it I read, the more I think it's actually fairly accomplished as a work of literary mimicry. It soothes. So I have it, and I've reread chunks of it. And I think I would like to reread the whole thing in one go. Fairly soon. I don't know when. Maybe 2017. Maybe this year. And there you have it. That is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the 6th bookshelf of the thin east wall bookcase. And believe it or not, that means we only have one more bookshelf to do in this bookcase for this interminable tour to be over. So although, as you can see in the background, we have lots more to go through. So that's it for now, and we'll go on to the next and last shelf next time. Thank you, BookTube.